Did this young female just lose her life at work simply because a coworker didn't like her and she gave him a bad look? This case is shaking the entire country. Amer Czech walked into her shift at Advanced Process Technologies in Kaykado, Minnesota. By 6 a.m., she was unalive, brutally attacked with a sledgehammer by 40-year-old co-worker David DeLong. According to the criminal complaint, DeLong admitted he didn't like her, and he said he'd been planning to unalive her for some time. Surveillance footage shows him leaving his station, grabbing a sledgehammer along the way, and striking her multiple times. After the attack, he told another coworker, "I hit her with your sledgehammer, and she's by your toolbox. She's gone." This wasn't a sudden snap. This was premeditated. And now experts are asking, how does something like this happen inside of a workplace? Were there warning signs that coworkers just didn't recognize? Was there a breakdown in safety culture? This is the ugly reality. Workplace violence is the fastest growing category of unalivings for women in male-dominated fields. Amer was young, skilled, respected, and one of the few women in a male-dominated field. People online are asking whether her success, talent, or even her confidence made her a target. Because in industries where women are drastically outnumbered, hostility often flies under the radar until it explodes. This case is more than a murder. It's a wake-up call for workplaces, for safety systems, and for every woman fighting to take up space in a male-dominated field.
Okay, so you guys heard the very unfortunate news. The young lady, Amer Czech or Amer Czech, not exactly sure how you pronounce it. She unfortunately lost her life. You heard the details, so I won't rehash it all. This is what I was talking about in my last video. When we talk about red pill dorks and, you know, all these conservative losers. When it comes to danger, there's two things that are always going to be true. When it comes to danger, and obviously danger from men. The two most dangerous kinds of men are going to be poor men and loser men. Men who are poor people are dangerous. They're typically danger. When you look at the amount of robberies, the amount of killings, the amount of any kind of violent kinetic crime, it's mostly poor people who commit those crimes. So it's just a statistical thing. But, you know, poor people tend to be dumb. Like, poor people tend to be less educated. Uneducated people are also more prone to being criminal. There's a lot that I could say with that, but I'm not going to waste your guys' time. I'll unpack that in a whole other video, but I think everybody can agree. Dumb people just give you a dangerous vibe, right? Because if they don't understand the situation, if they don't understand what you're saying, they might spaz out and do something stupid. But also, like I said, losers, men who are losers. And sometimes being dumb and being a loser walk hand in hand. Sometimes being lazy and being a loser walk hand in hand. Whatever the case might be, dumb people, lazy people, poor people, losers, they're dangerous people. And men tend to suck up that category quite strongly. Like, most of your dumb people are men. And that's statistics. That is a statistical fact. The less educated people tend to be men. Men tend to be less educated on average than women. As far as success goes, men tend to be less successful, especially in today's day and age. Men are losing, and it's making them dangerous. And you can see that with all of the red pill rhetoric. It is what it is. And this is one of the reasons why I'm kind of just walking against the red pill. Like, it's why I left the red pill, because I saw how dumb these guys were. I saw how lazy they were. Most of them are losers. And then it leads to things like this. Now, it seems like I'm just bashing and it seems like I'm just caping for this young lady, but I'm going to actually show you how stupid these people are and how losery these people are and why it makes them dangerous. And I'm going to let them tell on themselves.
Imagine being a young man and girls aren't interested in you. At best, you know, you're invisible to them. At worst, they hate you. They've been brainwashed to hate you.
The men are mad that women don't have to depend on men
But we should
anymore.
just take the power back. Fuck you. This ends when we say it ends. This all goes away the second
How about
we
you just
decide
like be
it
a
goes
good
away.
person? Like a
No,
girl
fuck
can choose
you.
to be
No more
with
good
you.
person.
She wants to
No
be.
more good person.
Like, you need a woman
We've
to be
seen what you
dependent
guys
on
do
you.
with your freedom, and it's horrible. We need to rescue you from yourselves.
Okay. There's a sync issue there, but you guys get the gist of what this guy is saying. I'll bring him back up real quick so you can see his face.
Being a young man in America right now.
So this is one of these red pill dorks. He's a new red pill dork. Like there's a new wave of red pill losers. And I say new wave because he's on the Fresh and Fit show, and Fresh and Fit have been exposed by Abba and Preach like 30 times. Like, they've been exposed dozens of times for being liars, for being frauds, for paying for sex, for not being able to get women organically. Like, they have been exposed as losers many, many times. So I don't need to necessarily go too deep into that. But all the people that they bring on their show, like guests like this, almost all of them, they tend to be losers themselves. They tend to be geeks and dweebs that couldn't get girls, and they just got onto this internet space, and then that's when they get their first money. That's when they get their first, taste of women, dealing with them. So they came to the internet, and that's where they got their swagger from. And he's one of those guys. He's a newer guy. I say newer because the red pill is kind of dying, and he's kind of picking up the scraps, what's left of it. Now, this guy says that we should just take women's power away. The first thing he leads off with is, imagine being a young man in today's world. Women don't want to deal with you. They don't like you. It's not like he's talking about they don't want to deal with you financially. He's talking about they don't want to deal with you sexually. So he's frustrated that as a young man, women aren't wanting to give him sex, because this guy's actually in his mid 20s. I think he's not even 30 yet. He might be like 25, 26. So this guy's pretty young. He represents Gen Z. A lot of Gen Z men are losers. They're not competitive. They've never learned to compete against other men in a vigorous fashion. A lot of these guys don't play sports. A lot of these guys aren't very smart. They don't compete against the brown kids on the robotics team or the chess team or the math club. They're not competing against any of the brown kids on basketball, football, track, whatever the case might be. They're not even competing against the whites or the Asians. So there's a lot of these kids who are losers because they don't put in the effort, and then the women don't like them because they don't stand out. So there's no real reason to associate with just, the average guy, especially if he's not tall, handsome, funny, so on and so forth. So these guys find their way to the internet, they find their way to the red pill space, and they say stuff like this. Well, women don't like, as if women are just supposed to like. And then he goes on to say, well, we should just take your power away, because he said that in response to the woman saying, we don't need you. And she's saying, we don't need you financially because we can work our own jobs. Now, if you remember, this whole video that I'm putting up here is about a woman who was killed on the job by a 40-year-old man, a man my age. So you can start to see this guy is in his 40s working as a welder. It's not like he was the lead welder. It's not like he was the foreman, this or that. He was just a regular welder. And there was a woman in there half his age who was probably doing the job better. He was a loser. This guy's a lifelong loser, and he can't compete with even a 20-year-old. He can't compete with the men his same age who have as much time on the job as him or more, right? He can't compete with the guys who are coming in who are, probably just gung-ho and have all this talent, and he probably can't beat him in a fight. And then this young girl comes in and she's outworking him, kicking his butt, making him look bad. He can't compete with her, so he decides to delete her. Just loser behavior. These guys in the red pill, they are dangerous losers. Their own effort or lack thereof makes them losers, but then their mentality makes them dangerous. He wants to take women's power away. Why? Sex. His whole argument started off on sex. Imagine being a young man and you can't get any attention from a woman, sexual attention. She says, well, we don't, you got to work. She's essentially saying the spirit of her argument is essentially, you got to work harder. Why? Because we are not dependent upon you. She literally said, you're just mad, or the men are mad that the women don't have to depend on them. And he says, well, this ends when we say it ends. We'll just take your power away. He wants to take away their financial power, so they have to depend on him, and thus he gets sex. That's a dangerous thought process, but we're not done yet.
It's that women come into men's spaces, change them, and then make it mandatory that men's spaces accommodate them while simultaneously never doing any of that themselves. They want to retain their privileges while also taking advantage of the privileges that men have.
Okay, so this is a guy, his name is Asmongold. I'm not really too sure what this guy is famous for. I know he's like a streamer, he's a gamer, but I know he's rich. I know he's like considered an OG in the streamer game. He's up there with like Ninja and XQC. I don't know if he goes back as far as Mr. Beast, but he's a bigwig. He's a heavy hitter. Now, what he's talking about is actually kind of weird, because I used to be in the red pill space. If you know, you know. And I made a video similar to this. Talking about how women go into men's spaces. And in this case, he's talking about gaming, how women go into men's spaces and they transform the space and they make it worse and so on and so forth. And there is a legitimate conversation to be had in that direction. Here's the problem. It doesn't matter how much subtlety or how much nuance you put into that conversation. The second a young woman gets deleted being in a male dominated space and she wasn't doing anything, all your subtlety, all your nuance, all your logic, all your theory, it goes out the window and it doesn't matter because women are going to tell you they should be safe no matter where they are. And if they're around, and this red pill, the red pill is always talking about men are the protectors. Well, why aren't women safe around you? If men are the protectors, and especially the red pill especially talks about how white men are the protectors. So if white conservative men are the protectors, why are women getting deleted on the job around white conservative men? It doesn't make any sense. Now, like I said, there's a lot that can be said about this guy's argument. There is a legitimate conversation, but women aren't trying to listen to that legitimate conversation because it becomes illegitimate the second somebody dies. When men are upset with women's presence or their performance, they can do something about it. And this is what women are always talking about. A crime against one woman is a crime against all women because all men can make all women a victim if they so choose. So you don't like women in male spaces for this reason or for that reason. Guess what? It results in the very first case. Young lady could possibly get deleted. This is, and he's like pseudo red pill. He's not really red pill, but he's based. Like he likes to say racist things. He's part of the brown pill movement. He's one of those kinds of guys. Now, I'm not going to say he's a loser because financially he's not. But if you were to see this guy in real life, you would know he's a loser. He first popped on my radar when he went viral a couple years back. I think he did like a co-stream with somebody or something like that. And they looked at his room and it was like this roach infested place. Like he was basically a hoarder and a streamer at the same time. So he was a very famous streamer who streamed and he got millions of views and stuff like that. But he was also a hoarder and he was living in this slovenly hellhole. And people were shocked. And then he also went viral for having bad hygiene. Like I guess he doesn't brush his teeth all that often. He only showers like once or twice a week, something like that. So he's like one of these weirdo slob type guys. He just happens to get rich. But this is the kind of guy who also goes on to say, we don't like women in our spaces. But women don't like you at all. Like, why would any woman like you? So you guys kind of see the tempo of the kinds of guys that are talking about women in this red pill space. But we're not done.
How come purebred dogs are more expensive? Like, how come nobody wants to ruin a purebred dog? Like, nobody wants a mutt.
I don't think dogs and humans should be compared.
No, you're right. Humans are more valuable.
Yeah, but
Why should you ruin your family's genetic lineage because you want some?
it's not because I want that. They just look more attractive to me. It's not what they have to offer. We're not dogs. We're people.
Okay, so let's say you were the last person in your family able to have kids. Would you throw it away and sleep with someone who's not your race?
I would sleep with someone I want to sleep with, who I love.
So that doesn't matter at all.
It depends who it is. Because I don't know who.
It doesn't matter?
I'm not throwing away. Like, what? I'm gonna, have kids with who I want to have kids with.
How come?
So you guys are starting to see what I'm talking about. This guy, that was the guy Hermes, whatever. He's a big member of the brown pill movement. That's just basically everybody hates black people, hates Indians, hates Arabs, Muslims, everything like that. And his whole content brand is, we want to take America back to when brown people had no rights, and there were less brown people, and when women had no rights. And his whole thing is, genetic lineage, and I did a video a few days ago where he was talking about honoring your ancestors by, marrying a woman and maintaining your ancestors' religious views. And now he's talking about genetics, right? Oh, you have these genetics, and shouldn't you marry somebody and have kids with somebody who shares those genetics or going to further that genetic line? This is a typical, I don't want to call it racist, but it's a typical trope, right? It's a very typical conservative trope. Genetics, lineage, heritage, history, ancestors, all that stuff. And I'm not telling anybody that they shouldn't want that. I'm just simply saying this is one of those tropes that it walks hand in hand with conservatism, and it walks hand in hand with controlling women sexually. Now, once again, this is what I talk about. Losers. It's only the loser males who walk around asking those kinds of questions. The men who can actually compete for women, they just go out there and get the woman that they want. Now, I'm not saying that the guy who asked the question is a loser. I'm just simply saying he represents a large majority of the losers in the red pill space, in the conservative space, in that space that seeks to take women backwards. And this is why women aren't going to go backwards. They're not safe with these kinds of men, or at least that's what they feel, right? These men who are banging that drum of heritage and genetics and all of this, these are the conservative men who don't want women to have money of their own, jobs of their own, career of their own, power of their own. You know, they want these women to vote the way they say vote, do what they say do. And maybe women would do that if these men weren't deleting them at work. Maybe men would do that, or maybe these women would do that if only the winners had a voice. And the winners set the tempo, and the tempo was women get treated with respect. Women are safe everywhere they go. Women aren't getting beat on in their own homes. There's no marital grape, right? I don't know if anybody saw the debate with Andrew Wilson and Coach Greg Adams, but Andrew Wilson was pretty much advocating for ecclesiastic marriage so that there would be some sort of pressure on women. There would be some sort of structure that would pressure women into having sex with them in the confines of a marriage. And one of the questions Coach Greg Adams actually asks is, do you know of any way to get women to have sex when they don't want to have sex? And the guy was like, yeah, you have your pastor step in. Basically, he was saying the church is going to pressure her to fulfill her marital duties. And it's just like, dude, this is all about control. This is all about you being a loser and you can't control your wife, or you want control over her. Specifically, you want sexual control. And that's one of the huge things women are against and they're not going for. So you start to see the pattern, right? I'm not saying every conservative is bad. I'm not saying every red pillar is bad, but you start to see how women they're never going to go back. Everywhere you turn, women see you trying to control them and trying to take them back for the express purpose of being able to control them monetarily and sexually, their bodily autonomy and their financial autonomy. Now, I got one more video, and hopefully this one makes it very, very clear as to what the red pill is kind of all about.
And he's like, we want to do what you people do to your women. We want our women to be like that. Because when I was filming with the neo-Nazis, one of the things he said, he's like, you know what I really respect is what we want white Sharia. And I went, huh? What does that mean? And he's like, we want to do what you people do to your women. We want our women to be like that. We want our women to be subservient. We want, or like whatever image that he had made in his brain, yeah? So it's interesting, and he was super serious about it. And, you know, and Tate's saying his version of that, right? So like you were, Kamsi, you were saying, the reality is, it's not going to go back to the way things used to be. People will try, but it's not going to go back to it.
Okay, so now you get it. This woman is Arab. I don't know who she is, but she kind of works with women, and she talks about, you know, her, you know, I guess she's interviewed neo-Nazis, conservatives, red pillars, and things like that. And I don't know if she's a current Muslim, former Muslim. I don't know what exactly is going on with her, but she's detailing an incident where she was talking to some neo-Nazis, and they directly said, we want white Sharia law. Now, the fundamental standpoint of Sharia law is that it controls women. Like, that is the number one thing that when red pillars talk about Sharia law, when they talk about Islam, they love it because, and this is not to say that they are converting to it, but they respect Islam because it controls women. And they recognize that Christianity has lost control of women. And the two specific ways is that, one, they can't get sex out of women, as to where in Islam, the woman can't say no to sex. And two, obviously they can financially control the woman if they have Sharia law. So you guys see what the content creators in the red pill space are saying. You see the personality types in the content space, And now you can start to get an understanding as to why women are never going back to conservatism and why they're never going to get back on the same page as men, because this is what it leads to. This is what the red pill wants, right? She was talking about Andrew Tate. She mentioned Tate, and Andrew Tate has praised Islam many, many times about its ability to control women. But when we wrap all this up and we serve the dish nice and hot, you can see how we got to this point with this guy in this workplace where he deletes this woman. Now, we don't know what he was thinking. We don't know if this guy was a schizophrenic. We don't actually know. This is a one-off. This case is a one-off. However, in women's mind, this case is all the time. Like, this is all the time. And in women's mind, this is like their biggest fear. I'm minding my own business. I'm doing absolutely nothing. And boom, misogyny takes my life. And that's exactly what happens. But then when men try to say, oh, that's just a one-off, he was just a crazy guy, what do we get? We get a woman talking about she did an interview with white neo-Nazis and they want Sharia law so they can bring women back. We got a guy who's a part of the new, we have multiple guys who are a part of the new red pill movement. I call them red pill dorks, but whatever. They're a part of the new red pill movement, and the only talking points they hang on to are the ones that control women sexually. So everywhere women turn, when they see conservatism and or red pill, they're seeing men who want to control them. My number one thing is that these men are losers and they're non-competitive in life. These men are oftentimes financial losers. They're almost certainly educational losers. They're scholastic losers. Socially, they're losers. Grade school, middle school, high school, college. They don't want to compete. They want things simply given to them. Case in point, when have you ever heard the red pillars? When have you ever heard the conservatives complain about how many white people are in the NBA, how many white people are in baseball, how many white people are in football? You never hear it because these are merit-based things. If you work hard enough, you're going to beat the people around you. You're going to get the draft pick. You're going to get put on the team. They don't complain about that because they know they're not competing for those things. They complain about tech jobs. They say the Indians are taking all the tech jobs. If you go to college and you see who's going into STEM, it's mostly Indians, it's mostly Koreans, Japanese. It's a lot of whites too, it's Arabs. But then you see who's going to get the master's degree, who's going to get the doctorate degree. What they'll say is, well, we're being forced out because of H-1B visas and this and that. And I'll say, you're not even applying. You're not even trying. Like you're not. Look at high school. How many kids are on the spelling bee team? It's all Indians. It's all Asian kids. How many kids are on the math club? How many kids are on the chess club? How many kids are in the robotics clubs? These are all non-Americans, or they're all, second generation American kids, Asians, Indians, Hindu, whatever the case might be. So these guys, they won't compete at the earliest stages. They won't go to college. They say women have taken over college, so they don't go. But then they complain that the Indians are going. Like, why aren't the Indians dropping out? Why is it that the Indians can come from India, a third world country or something close to it, and then they can compete? You guys are in a first world country and you simply don't want to compete. And then you say, well, it's the H-1B visa. No, it's because you're a loser. You got the internet. You could be on the internet. You could be doing anything. You could be an entrepreneur. You don't want to compete. You want to complain, because a lot of these conservatives and red pill types, they want to go back to a world where God restricts the woman, where the church restricts the woman, where society restricts the woman and then gives to the white man. Just like the guy Hermes said, the white guy. Why do you want to have sex with a non-white? Why do you want to mess up your lineage? He compared brown people to dogs. He wants that woman to just give him sex. He doesn't want to have to earn it and have merit, a nice paycheck, a good life to offer. None of the stuff like that. The other guy, we should just change the rules. We should just take the power back. Why? Because he wants women to have to depend on him sexually and financially. Thus, he gets the sex. So there's a lot that I could say. I'm really just kind of dragging this at this point, but you guys get the gist. Women are never coming back to the conservative side. We're never going back to the 1950s because women aren't going to be safe. There's too many losers. Only winners are supposed to have a voice. And in the red pill, It's the losers who are doing all the talking. Yes, you have your Andrew and Tristan Tates, the guys who are 6'3", 6'4". They're millionaires many times over. They're handsome. They're essentially Batman. You know, these guys are rich. They're handsome. They're tall. They're strong. They fight professionally at least at one point in time. Yes, you do have those guys, but everybody outside of that these guys are losers. They were never winners in real life. They didn't become winners until they got to YouTube. So you have losers who have a voice, and the losers are trying to drag everybody back. Notice, when you look at the conservative side, when you look at the red pill side, there are very few people that women would say, yeah, that guy's a winner. There are very few tall, handsome, rich, successful guys who went to college and got the degree and, went into the industry and did something in the industry. There are very few of those guys, but there's a lot of talking heads. And in real time, those guys are losers. So when women see women like this Amer Czech girl dying like this, it just reinforces the fact that they're never coming back to your side. So I'm not going to beat this into the dirt. It is what it is. Women are not coming back to the 1950s in any way, shape, or form.